Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, Bentley wants his prisons. Also, the V-Team takes a look at who's the real conservative. And the race is on for Sessions' Senate seat. Now that's a Senate race, Alabama style. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V.
The Voice of Alabama Politics. With your host, Bill Brett. Now, the #1 political show in Alabama, The V.
Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by the V-Team. Welcome.
Hello, good to be back.
Good morning, good to be back.
It is good to have you back. You've been in D.C.
Been in D.C., been all over.
Yeah, well, you won't tell us what you're up to in D.C. But
Well, we're just going to have a great year in
Potomac.
2017. How about that?
All right, sounds good. This past week, Chief Justice Roy Moore filed some briefs in his appeal, which was back in October. He says that one of the things he says is that the court overstepped its bounds. Chip, you covered this. Tell us what you found.
Yeah, so Roy Moore's attorneys filed paperwork, his first set of briefs for his appeal. Like you said, he filed the first set of that back in October. He says basically that the Court of the Judiciary overstepped its bounds by suspending him for 2 years and 2 months instead of actually having a unanimous vote to remove him completely from the bench. With that being said, usually the Court of the Judiciary, under their rules, have to have a unanimous vote, a 9-0 vote, to remove a judge from the bench. But in this case, they just had a simple majority vote just to suspend him for 2 years till the end of his term.
And they're trying to keep those records sealed, Beth, so that we can't find out how they voted or any other shenanigans that may have taken place.
Right, and what we can kind of conclude happens, kind of like what Chip said, is they couldn't get that 9-0 vote, so they settled with a majority of we can meet in the middle on this. And the thing is, we need to know what happened and what was discussed, and this needs to be an open proceeding, because I think Josh said last week, if you're okay with this happening to somebody you don't like, then how are you okay with this happening to somebody you do like?
And Claire, I think that's the issue here. I mean, it's no longer about Roy Moore, it's about justice.
Justice and the process, because if they'll do it to him, for the top guy, from the Chief Justice all the way down. And it's pretty crystal clear that this was designed this way, because it also puts the governor in limbo. The governor can't appoint somebody to the Chief Justice because of how they, suspended him for 2 years and 2 months and didn't have the votes.
We have a court with just 8 people on it. So say it comes down to a contentious case.
Right.
What happens if they tie? It goes back down to the lower court.
Well, I've been impressed that this 7-judge panel that now is acting as the Supreme Court has ruled in our favor, or at least has said, why aren't you opening these records to the Alabama Political Reporter? Mm-hmm. Once again, we're the only outlet has asked for them. And this gives me some hope that this may be fair. I don't know. I mean, Chip and I were talking earlier about the fact that this is no longer about, this is about equal protection. The very thing that Roy Moore is accused of denying, same-sex couples, we're now defending him over, right, Chip?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely true. I mean, that worries me if you have a situation where a court, skirts what their rules say they are supposed to do. And they said in their opinion that they didn't have the votes to remove him from the court, but they just used a simple majority vote to skirt around that rule and suspend him for 2 years. So when this term is over, it's up for him. Yeah. Well, he's too old to run again.
But this is just not fair to the citizens of the state of Alabama, because they overwhelmingly elected Judge Roy Moore to this to the
true.
bench, okay? And for them to do this kind of backroom smoking deals with this hand-select group of people is just wrong.
Well,
no
it's-
matter how you look, whether you're for Judge Moore or not. You know what I'm saying? The process.
And the thing about justice is it's not only has to be right, Beth, it has to look right. And this
Right.
just doesn't look right.
Well, and I think the thing is that with what Judge Moore did this time, just as with the Ten Commandments case, what he did was enough to get him in some legal trouble. And so why not just do it all above board? You know, his actions speak for themselves, so let's handle it above board. There's no sense in muddying the waters with all of this.
Well, and the thing is, I will go back to the fact that, while I personally don't want to get it personal about Moore. It's not about Moore. It's about justice and how we handle it here in Alabama. And I'm telling you, this thing stinks to high heaven to me.
But you're saying it's not about Judge Moore, and you're right. But the other members of the court have made it about Judge Moore, and it appears, particularly the way the acting Chief Justice has been maneuvered and the actions she's done, that seem to be a
You
little
can say whatever you
unconscionable.
want to about Roy Moore, but the fact of the matter is that this is like an unprecedented suspension. I mean, the longest one before this was 6 months.
Right, and then we looked at a comparison of all the others, and there's nothing even remotely like this,
And
right?
I would say that, probably a 6-month suspension, if that's what they decided on, would have been, needed in this situation, because like you said, I think he did do some things that, required some legal punishment. But 2 years and 2 months?
Without pay, and he can't get another job. I think they wanted him to quit.
Oh, sure.
I think they wanted him to quit, and then they could replace him.
They don't know Roy Moore in that case.
Nah, Roy Moore doesn't quit.
Well, I hope there's some more stones that can be unveiled, and I would hope that the other media across the state of Alabama will report on this as well.
They like the outcome too much, evidently, but we're after them. They don't need anybody but a band of very committed individuals to the truth. That's all it takes to change things. Anyway, Claire, you'll find this as hilarious as I do. Since 1990, they've had 10 official budget reform commissions, committees, task force, 10. And we now are on our 10th one. And Chip was there watching the paint dry.
And nothing's changed in 20-something years.
Nothing's changed in 20 years. Clinton Carter had some interesting ideas, but what was it?
Yeah, he posed about 6 ideas to the task force yesterday. His first main idea was that, agencies are allowed to keep the money that they have from the previous years. It's called a carryover. Some agencies, like the Department of Transportation, have $1 billion in carryover. Other agencies, like ALEA, only had like $30 million. But Clinton Carter said that, having those carryovers allows agencies to save money and not spend it frivolously at the end of the year to try to appear like they weren't overfunded. But he wants to change it to where there's an 80-20 split. So the agencies keep 80% of their money, but the 20% would go back to the general fund. It would be remitted to the state to be used for other things.
And while that's a good idea, Beth, if you don't have enough money to pay your bills, you got to raise more money, right?
Right. I mean, I think the whole bottom line of this budget issue is that we don't have enough revenue coming in. And whether we do that through a lottery or we do it through Medicaid expansion or we do it through raising taxes, however, we've got to find a way to bring in more revenue because we simply can't cut our way out of this crisis.
Well, I can assure you they're not going to raise taxes, okay?
No.
In the last 20 years.
We can probably write off Medicaid expansion while we're at it, too.
Yeah.
Well, that leaves one thing left. There's
some gaming out
That's some
there.
gaming, and that'll pay some big dividend. Just look at what the Porch Creek's made over the last few years.
Well, and they've had a gaming task force that has been doing things during the off season, and I think they're going to come up with something.
I certainly hope so. And Clinton Carter's heading that up, and I hear he's doing a pretty good job. We're going to leave it right there. You're watching The voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back.
Happy holiday. Happy holiday. Happy holiday. Happy holiday. While the merry bells keep ringing, happy holiday to you. Happy holiday. Happy holiday.
Azia Medical Spa offers a relaxing experience using customized skincare treatments and full line of physician-grade products with professionals that can assist you in determining which treatment options will best help you achieve your desired results. Azia's massage therapies are popular for rejuvenation and relaxation, as well as relief of tired, aching, and sore muscles. Voted the best medical spa in Birmingham for 3 years in a row, visit aziamedicalspa.com to schedule your appointment.
rock. Jingle bells swing and jingle bells ring.
Welcome back to the V, the voice of Alabama politics. Musical chairs?
Yes,
Musical chairs.
absolutely.
Oh,
Chinese
wow.
fire drill.
Like a Chinese fire drill.
Absolutely. Wow, that's crazy. Anyway, welcome back, Jack.
Thanks, Bill.
This week, we learned that Acting Chief Justice Lynn Stewart got back pay from 12 years ago, Beth. She got $17,000 and change. In 2004, the legislature passed a bill that said they put a pay freeze in, then they reinstated it, and so there were 8 months where people didn't get their pay. Well, Lynn Stewart and some others asked could they get their money now, but that runs contrary to the 2005 opinion that was given at the time by Troy King.
Right, in that 2005 opinion, correct me if I'm wrong, you have to be moving on to a higher office.
Exactly.
And it has to be, what, a 2-year statute of limitations?
Exactly.
So you can't, I mean, this was 2004. She's coming here right before Christmas in 2016 wanting her little paycheck, and that's not how this works. I'm sorry.
What I would say, it's totally egregious. It's out of line, and she's done a lot of things that are out of line. And then she gets another member of the court, Judge Boland, to send in this request for an opinion with with Luther Strange. I mean, something doesn't smell or look right on all of this.
She's been on this for a while, I want my $17,000.
Makes
She's
her
been
look
on
greedy.
it, and then all of a sudden, she said, Boland says, well, she recused herself from this one.
Well, you know what she ought to do? Just leave it in the state coffers. As slow as they are about getting cases out up there, hell, I just say donate it, Lynn.
Yeah.
Be done
Or
with
give it to a charity. Don't be acting like a grant charity.
I mean, really.
Well, and Luther passed the kind of deal that said, notwithstanding the 2-year statute of limitation, you can work it out with the comptroller. If he thinks it's okay with me, which is kind of acquiescing to the acting chief
Kind of
justice.
punting the ball a little
Right.
bit.
A little punting there.
Well, it's not setting a very clear standard.
No.
So it's giving the comptroller the ability to say, okay, I'll pay you yours, but not you yours. I mean, there's got to be a clear line on how we do business.
Again, she did not move on to a higher
Oh,
office.
well, wait a minute. She's kind of alluding to that because she's the acting chief justice.
Right, so
she's trying
she's
to
actually
push
moved-
herself
right.
with all the twists and turns that
Yeah.
they've done in that process.
No,
Well,
an
you know.
acting chief justice is not the chief justice any more than a new picture hanging on the wall doesn't get rid of Roy Moore. I mean,
Yeah, that's right. She did want to have a new picture without Roy Moore in
The
it.
ghost of Roy Moore, yeah.
What is this? The Taliban or something? You get rid of them and you got to tear down the monuments or the Soviet Russia,
I don't
erase them
know.
from
It's-
history.
It's not good.
Well, I tell you, that troika of her and Boland and Maine, they are trying to co-opt the Supreme Court really just like a third world country.
I wonder if we looked into who pays for all their campaigns, if we'd see a common thread there.
You mean like BCA, Jack?
Yeah, I
Probably
would say
exactly like-
definitely BCA.
You know, Lynn Stewart was planning on running in 2000, what was the year, 2012? And then she found out that the BCA was going to back Malone, and she decided not to run. Then Moore beat Malone like a rented mule in the primary. So, best laid plans. Jack Bentley wants his prisons.
Well, good for him.
He wants
He
them.
might be in one soon.
But we don't need an $800 million prison bond that's no bid or parts of it. I mean, they've already got the construction company picked
The
out,
engineers,
the
the
architect.
architects.
I mean, they've already picked all that out.
But they
this
might
is
need
shady.
But you know what? They might need a new prison because all those people that have all those contracts, then these criminal lawyers are going to have a lot of
Well,
work
we-
because these people are going to get in trouble.
There are a lot of folks that are under investigation might end up in those prisons.
Yeah, well, including the governor and his cohorts. But I think, Beth, the thing is, we keep beating on the drum that we need more prisons. When it does, you have to have justice reform.
Right. I mean, we're at 200% capacity, or nearly 200% here in Alabama. We're horrible conditions in these prisons. I mean, it's terrible. But the thing is, too, we have to look at how can we accommodate the people who need to be in prison and do it in a way that is constitutional, while also let's quit locking people up for a bounce check. Let's look at mandatory minimums and see what we can do to give judges some discretion. I know there was a judge somewhere in South Alabama that got in trouble because he wouldn't ever sentence people to jail. He'd let them find a way around it or do, community service or something.
Well, it's a very Republican idea to say, okay, you stole from me. I want my money back. Now I'm going to put you to work. and you pay me more money back. You know, but you know, the prisons are bad.
Well, you know, it's that whole truth in sentencing, like they were doing on the federal guidelines. You know, give the judges a little bit of flexibility and give them a sliding scale. Because you're right, things like that, they don't need to be throwing them in jail.
And I think somebody pointed out the other day, they said, well, Jeff Sessions will help us with our prison problem. Jeff Sessions is going to do what's right.
That's right.
As Attorney General. He's not going to just turn a blind eye to Alabama.
But Jeff Sessions also come out hard against, you know, for example, the marijuana industry and the states that have legalized that.
Yeah.
So if we want to start talking about nonviolent offenders, that's one place to start right there that we can't look for this
I don't disagree with you.
A bigger thing, I think, the bottom line is we need more officers. We need more people working in the prison system. Instead of spending this money, they need control. They need corrections officers and guards in these prisons.
But no, we're going to go get down to the Gulf and build a resort that private industry should have been given that project.
Well, maybe they could turn that into a prison for Bentley.
Isn't that a University of Alabama doing that?
Yeah, that's all gets hinky too. Listen, we only got about 2 minutes. I want to move on. We're always talking about how proud we are of our men and women in uniform, how their service and sacrifice means everything to us. Yet, if you go over to Maxwell Air Force Base, there's housing that has black mold, pink mold, rotting floors, everything else, because this contractor, Hunt Company, is not doing their job.
Right, they've got a contract to provide housing for our soldiers and their families that are stationed on base. And I mean, this is just abhorrent to think about the fact that we've got people who have survived overseas to come back to get stationed at Maxwell, and these are the conditions we're asking them to live in. I mean, no, absolutely not. I'm sorry. We've got to start treating our men and women in uniform better.
And you know, this is an issue that's nationwide. They're having this problem nationwide. But Maxwell is. Josh Moon talked to several of the wives and husbands over there to say, we've got children. And floors, you know, carpets that are flooded and rotted.
And, you know, the thing about it is Maxwell Air Force Base is a, you know, cream of the crop. It's not a low-end Air Force base, and people come here from all over to the Air War College. So, you know, I know they can go and get private housing outside, but it's a shame if a company has this contract, they need to keep their feet to the fire.
50-year contract.
Yeah.
That's,
I mean, who's ever
that's
heard
insane.
of that?
$285 million.
Yeah.
And the fact is, we got kids playing in houses with black mold. That's going to give them asthma. It's going to give them respiratory issues, and that will affect them for the rest of their lives.
Future lawyer.
And the thing
I
is,
think our Congressman Martha Roby and our senators that they need to get on top of
I
this.
think Martha's all over
she
it. I mean,
is.
to her credit.
Yeah, she is.
She needs to get
And
on something to fix things
I tell
right
you,
now.
the big thing to me is you cannot talk about and brag about how great our military is and then turn a blind eye when they're being mistreated by a big corporation that gives lots of dough to politicians.
With our tax dollars,
That's
nonetheless.
right. Yeah. Well, anyway, we're going to have to leave it right there, black mold and all. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back with more news and analysis.
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire, Jack Frost nipping at your nose.
Azia Medical Spa offers a relaxing experience using customized skincare treatments and full line of physician-grade products with professionals that can assist you in determining which treatment options will best help you achieve your desired results. Azia's massage therapies are popular for rejuvenation and relaxation, as well as relief of tired, aching, and sore muscles. Voted the best medical spa in Birmingham for 3 years in a row, visit aziamedicalspa.com to schedule your appointment.
Jingle bell, jingle bell, jingle bell rock. Jingle bells swing and jingle bells ring. Snowing and blowing.
Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. Jack, you have to feel some pride in that the American Conservative Union named the top conservative House members in Alabama are guys that you helped get elected.
Well, that is heartening, since I was accused of everything from being an AEA operative to being a liberal Republican, a French Republican. But I think some of the candidates that we consulted with are in that top 5, Tim Wadsworth and
Isaac Wharton
and
Corey Harbison.
yeah, thank you, because I couldn't remember.
Yeah,
and then there, and Chris Sells, whom we consulted with in the primary, not in the general, but they are 4 out of the top 5.
Yeah.
When people said we were running a bunch of Obama Democrats for office, which was ridiculous from day one.
Well, I mean, and this is, just to, what they say, compare and contrast. Craig Ford rated higher as a conservative than guys like Jack Williams from Birmingham, who Mike Hubbard spent $1 million to get reelected.
When Jack Williams was the head Mike Hubbard cheerleader, remember? He's the one raising all the money for the defense fund. And, Craig Ford's a good legislator. And I will say that, Corey Harbison especially and Isaac Horton, I don't agree with either of them on much policy-wise, but in terms of good legislators, neither of them have ever hesitated to sit down and hear where I stood on something.
Right.
And that means a lot, that at least they're willing to listen and hear the other side, because so many won't do it.
Well, and that's because they're really actually conservatives. They're not crazies. You know what I mean?
and they were not afraid to say no to Mike Hubbard. To their credit, all of them were never afraid.
Well, and I haven't gotten to know most of these guys, but I tell you what, that Tim Wadsworth is as sharp
Solid
as they
as a
come.
rock.
He's a great one.
And Isaac Wharton, every time I see him, I'm going,
You can't miss him. He's 18 feet tall.
well, I know. But I always think, future governor right there. I mean,
He carried like 90% of Chambers County, which is
And Chambers
unheard
leans
of.
blue. I mean, Chambers is...
yeah. But I mean, he's just a good guy, good looking. He's got what Alabama really used to love in the governor. You like Big Jim Folsom, some of those guys.
Yeah.
Big guys, and big personality, and he's very smart.
He is.
Very smart. I don't know what, we don't need any more 73-year-old sex maniacs or whatever we got now.
I think that's a given.
Well,
God gracious.
but
That rules
I'm
out
really
half
happy for
Montgomery.
these guys, because
Yeah,
they took
very
a lot
proud of
of,
them.
took a
I
lot
think
of heat.
that might leave an opening for Craig Ford to come in and people say he wants to run for governor. If he's a conservative Democrat, if he's the most conservative Democrat, that might give him a...
Yeah.
It's just still going to be hard to get elected.
People up in Shelby or whatever, Jefferson, should have listened and voted for David Wheeler, but they got Jack Williams, who's lower than the House minority leader, Craig Ford,
The
Democrat.
head Democrat, yeah. And I'm with you. If we can get some Republicans to look past the D title, if he's up against somebody like, a Roy Moore type, who's very, very conservative, Craig Ford probably lines up more with what the majority of Alabamans believe.
Well, let's face it, most politicians in Alabama, they're not liberal Nancy Pelosi Democrats. They are, they're Republican light, if anything else. They're Republican without some of the social hang-ups, you know what I mean? And most of these Republicans, if you talk to them in private, they're, well, I don't really have a problem with that, but I just don't. It's dishonest. But
it's pandering.
Most people don't have a problem with it.
Pander bears is what we call them, pander bears. Jack, something I know is near and dear to your heart. Surprise, surprise. We've been graduating students out of high schools in Alabama, and we're bogus graduation rate. Not real at all.
I think we've always lied about the dropout rate in Alabama. I think that's been going on for years. But this is very bad stuff. And Mary Scott Hunter, I'm on her mail list, and Mary Scott, please take me off if you're watching. Because it's a bunch of BS every week. Oh, this was news to us that they were fixing grades and messing with the. I mean, it's.
SNL even made fun of it last week with the University of Alabama.
It's so sad that it took the feds coming in once again and investigating, another Alabama institution to find out that, it's doing something wrong.
Yeah, this whole bunch just lies. Let's just take. And Mary Scott Hunter is tied to that deal with Craig Pouncey. She's tied to BCA, and you can't trust anything that comes out of her mouth.
It's something fishy when you go from 2011 to 2015 and you have a 17-point increase in your graduation rate, but no better
And
test.
all
Yeah, I
those
mean, really,
fundings we put
that
in
smell,
public
they should have
schools.
caught that right off the bat.
We know
And Josh Moon
what-
told him about it.
Yeah, Moon reported about it in
I'm
2012.
surprised
but
he varied from Trump, but he did.
What tipped me off to this,
he did-
though, I'm sorry, I remember when I was in high school, we had to take a graduation exam, and you had to get something like 30% to be able to graduate. And it was a four option test. So if you just guess, you get 25%. So you got to know 8% of the questions. And the kicker was, I counted 10 questions that had the answers on other parts of the test.
Well, there's nothing like having a public education from Alabama that just sets
So,
you apart from everybody
When we
else.
couldn't pass that
Absolutely.
test, I knew we had a problem.
Well, don't give me any math, but I did pretty well in the rest of the stuff.
Yeah, well, it's just sad because it really just goes to the heart of the problem, and that is that our people are uneducated. We don't, they put money into education, but it doesn't go to the kids.
We're cheating the parents, we're cheating the taxpayers, and we're really robbing the kids at gunpoint
And a lot
of
of-
ever achieving anything.
And a lot of the kids that are going to be the hardest hit from this are the students in alternative courses that, have special needs and other things like
Yeah,
that.
and a message to the state board, not everybody in Alabama can afford to send their children to private schools. There are plenty of public school kids in this state that deserve what they're not getting.
Yeah, absolutely.
What if we
You're
give them
right.
a voucher so that they can take some tax dollars to
Well,
private?
and that's what's coming next. We got about 1 minute. I want to go flip back to this Supreme Court deal. And one of the things I know, Chip, you and I were talking about it earlier. We have, filed a motion to have the documents in the Roy Moore case unsealed. The new 7 panel judges said we could have them unsealed, but we're hearing that we're gonna, if we get those, we're gonna see where there was collusion, maybe figure out who leaked to the New York Times. I mean, we got about 30 seconds, but I mean, this is what's troubling also is that you've got some members of the Supreme Court working with the JIC, we hear.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we've heard that Stewart and Bolin and, another justice have been, colluding basically, and I don't know about that, but I wouldn't be surprised. It is Alabama, so
Yeah.
it seems like they
Nothing
were
surprises
after
me.
Moore. They wanted him off the court,
Yeah.
and they used JIC to do it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, sealing documents is normally to protect the person that was removed from
Yeah,
office.
right.
But Roy Moore wants them unsealed, and they're still
Absolutely.
fighting them tooth and nail, and there's something smelly going
All
on.
right. Jack has the last, something smelly going on, always in Alabama. You've been watching the voice of Alabama politics. You watch us because we watch them.